For a couple of weeks, it seems that getting to the trails has started a little differently than usual. And recently, the most used tool in my mountain bike toolbox has been the window scraper. As you can imagine, my car has been covered in snow and ice every day for the last couple of weeks. But interestingly, so have the trails. Not wanting to miss out on this awesome opportunity, I got kitted up and headed into the hills. For today's ride, I'm on the edge of the Peak District at a place called Black Rocks. The views from here were pretty amazing, but I'm not here to sightsee today, because there are loads of natural trails here that I'm desperate to try out. Slowly making my way up from the car park, my plan is to head right to the top of the hill. From the trig point, there are a few red and black trails to choose from. My plan is to link a few of the trails together and ride them top to bottom. That is, if I can stay upright. To test the conditions out and get a feel for the trails at Black Rocks, I started on the red trail before heading into the blacks. These natural Peak District trails are always interesting to navigate. It can be hard to see your route on these trails at the best of times, but half covered in snow and ice, picking the best line was hard to do. That's if I could see the line at all. Trails like this are heavily used by riders and walkers, and you really need to be focused on the trail ahead. On this upper section, I was pleased to find that the ground was frozen solid, making traction pretty good. I just needed to be careful over some of the more thought out or heavily used sections. These could still be pretty icy. This trail is a good introduction to what's on offer here. I'm not normally a fan of ruts on trails, but today they actually made for a smoother ride along some of the sections. As with most natural Peak District trails, there are plenty of awkward rocks and technical features to navigate. That make the trail really fun to ride, and I absolutely love this kind of unknown challenge. This trail is a pretty gentle downhill with nothing too major that can catch you out. It's just a lot of fun. The trail flattens out towards the bottom and the line options spread out a bit more. At the end of the first section, I'm pleased to see that I'm still upright on my bike and I'm ready for more.
That was good. Tough to see where I was going in the snow. You don't know if there are rocks or whatever underneath you. Good fun though.
The second trail I dropped into is a black trail called Memorial Wall. It starts by gaining a bit more height before following the line of the old wall. Still riding on pretty solid ground, this upper section is slower and a more technical ride. With a more serious helping of rocks on the trail, this is a bit more of a challenge compared to the previous red. This line is really exciting because it hops back and forth over sections of the wall. Its winding nature made it a really interesting and involved line to follow. Because I haven't ridden here before, all these trails are new to me. Riding blind, I'm taking things a bit slower than you might normally want to ride a trail, but considering the potential for slippery rocks, I thought this a wise option. With the icy rock-hard surface, I'm pretty glad that I'm on my full suspension bike today. Of course, you could ride all of these trails on a hardtail, but with my recent track record of staying on my bike, I thought I'd need all the help I can get. It was definitely a bit icy on some of these sections of the wall, so I was certainly taking some sections with a bit more caution than others. Today I don't have particularly thick tyres on my bike. These are actually my old summer tyres that I've been too lazy to replace with winter ones. But considering that, the frozen ground feels amazing to ride on. But as I descend lower and lower, it will be interesting to see how well the trail conditions hold up. Turning into the last section before the ride back up, I dropped into what I think is called Jungle Run. Riding the trails top to bottom, there are basically 3 sections. Because all the sections meet up in the same place after each one, you can really mix and match which ones you fancy doing. This is great for riding in a group because you can split off and take different lines and all meet up after each one. As you can see, there was definitely a lot less snow down in this section, and with the thawing snow came mega puddles.
Oh no!
Luckily, there weren't that many puddles yet as it's still really cold, but the upper sections are definitely a lot more solid. In this lower section, all the trails converge towards the bottom. There are a couple of steeper lines that you can take, but to be honest, it was nice to have some proper dirt under my tyres again. Eventually, the trail brings you out onto the High Peak Trail. You can follow this paved path all the way back up to the car park. Now, I'm not sure if this is the best way to get back up to the top again, but I didn't know any others. The route takes you back past the car park and through a steep woodland.
Man, this is one hell of a push-up trail. There's got to be an easier way back up than this.
Finally, making it back to the trails, it was time for another run. This trail is a black route called Trig Main. It starts off following the main hill line. This section is filled with large rocks, which lead to some interesting and slower line choices. The trail is broken up with flowing short descents, some light pedalling sections, and plenty of technical rock. I always say it when I'm riding natural trails, but this type of riding is very different from trail centre riding. In fact, you could argue that this is mountain biking, and the stuff that we do at trail centres is just training. Whatever you want to call it and wherever you like to ride, it's all good with me. I love a good mixture of riding styles and terrains. To be honest, it's just awesome that we're all out on our bikes. The majority of this section of trail is similar to the first one we rode, in that it's pretty rutted and spread out. At this point, it was getting towards lunchtime and the hill walkers were out in force. When you're out in this environment, you have to be courteous and respect other users of the outdoors, so I slowed down and gave everyone a wide berth. Riding slowly over this terrain was actually pretty tricky to do. Luckily, the walkers tended to stick to the upper parts of the trail, leaving the lower trails a bit clearer. But I can imagine that this place gets pretty busy in the height of summer. Instead of going left at the middle section to ride Memorial Wall again, I chose to keep going straight and ride the Connector Trail, which is the most direct route. This line was clear, the trail was wide, and this one is one of the faster sections here. After riding lots of slower technical sections, I was excited to get a bit more speed under my belt. But on this particular trail, that speed I wanted came with a caveat.
Oh, it's a boulder field. An icy boulder field.
And it turns out that I made a good choice bringing my full suspension bike today. Yep, it's fair to say that this section was one of the sketchiest, but also one of the most fun sections that I rode today. It wasn't the ice on the ground that was the problem, it's more that I couldn't really feel my fingers at this point. To pick the best line was a combination of trying to keep blood flowing to my fingers and just hoping I didn't need to hit the brakes quickly. Luckily, I made it down to the end in one piece, and there's only one more trail section to go. This last section is called Alongside the Incline, and you'll see why in a bit. This is the main track down to the bottom of the hill. It's wider than the other trails down here, and it's a bit more of a well-trodden path. I did attempt a couple of the other lines here today, but unfortunately they were out of action. Inside the incline is a good natural trail. As well as a couple of rocks, there are a few routes to contend with too. There seems to be a good mixture of trails here at Black Rocks. Some are out in the open, some are in the woods, some have a load of technical features and rocks, and some are smoother and faster lines. I haven't ridden all the trails here, so there's plenty more to explore next time. Alongside the incline runs parallel to the push-up path, and like the name suggests, there's a bit of a hefty drop to the left-hand side, which the trail gets pretty close to in places. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on your line choice here.
Well, that's a steep drop.
Black Rocks has a pretty decent elevation, so if you're looking to get a few laps in top to bottom, you're going to have a decent workout. This lower section is only a couple of minutes long, but when it's added to the other sections above, it's actually a pretty decent ride. The end, of course, is one of my favourite parts because that's where it gets steep. So, despite it being -3 degrees when I set off this morning, the trails were running brilliantly. This was an amazing experience and somewhere that I've been wanting to ride for a long time. So, although the winter months can require a bit more organisation when you want to go biking, the riding itself is superb. So, thanks for watching, remember to subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next time.